is up, you guys? It's Dustin, and I am back with another video. And in this video, we're going to be talking about James Charles and how he always gets away with everything. It seems like he just weasels his way out of every single scandal that he finds himself in. I apologize for not uploading over the past several days. I intended to upload more this month because I was doing really well. However, we all know that I had that incident with Uber, and over the past several days, Nick and I have been dealing with that, if you know what I mean. So hopefully we'll be having some kind of resolution to that soon. And there was one other thing that I did want to address and document on my channel publicly for the world to know if anything were to happen to me. I've already started to receive threats. I'm just going to put it right here for the world to see if we ever have to come back to this because of Uber and their negligence in this whole situation with the stalker that we've had going on for the past several years that you guys know about. But we'll discuss that later at another time. However, before we get into the rest of this video where I talk about James Charles and how he gets away with literally everything, and we react to this Be Better video where James is apparently filing a lawsuit against him. But before we jump into that, here is a word from today's sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. Imagine this. Suddenly you're in a life-altering car crash and your world is turned upside down. You're dealing with medical bills, lost wages, and pain, while insurance companies lowball you and offer you pennies for your suffering. You try to fight back, but you're up against corporate legal teams with deep pockets. And that's where today's sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, comes in. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm, with over 1,000 attorneys in all 50 states. Here are some things to consider. Morgan & Morgan recovered $12 million in Florida, stated to be 34 times what the insurance offered, and in Philadelphia secured $26 million, which is said to be 40 times the insurance best offer. And for those seriously hurt, they suggest injuries could be worth millions. Morgan & Morgan has modernized the injury law process. You can submit a claim, communicate with the legal team, all from your smartphone. And the fee is absolutely free unless you win. They've recovered over $20 billion for clients. All law firms are not the same. They're the biggest because they win a lot. The process to sign up is very simple. You sign up and Morgan & Morgan takes it from there. Their attorneys equipped with experience and technology will fight for your rights if you become their client so you can focus on recovery. And they offer support with their team, all accessible right at your fingertips. For those of you that have been hurt, you can visit forthepeople.com/Dustin for more information. Because when you're hurt, remember Morgan & Morgan is for the people. So I figured we would start with this Be Better video. I don't understand why this guy gets the slander that he does. I don't think it was necessarily a great idea for him to do this interview with Zach Sellers, but somehow here we are. I think that he is very well spoken, smart, and if you remember, he said exactly what James Charles was gonna do, and I think a lot of what he says in this video plays into why James Charles actually gets away with everything.
So there is a lot that I want to address with you guys, and I'll start by saying that the reason why I haven't addressed all of this sooner is not because I've been ignoring the situation like some people have said. It's because I've been looking into it. So for those of you that may not know what I'm talking about, in the week since my interview was posted, there have been numerous and deeply disturbing allegations made against Zach Sellers, the individual that I interviewed. Now, these are potential crimes that we're talking about.
And side note about Zach, I know I never got around to making that video about him. How is he still live on TikTok every single day begging for galaxies? I don't know if it's people replaying his live streams trying to get money out of people and it's not really him or what, but that's just so weird. I did also want to add that I saw that Kayla is going to be on the Canceled podcast with Tana, and she's going to be talking about this situation with James Charles again. Now, I do think that's going to be very interesting because I want to know what Tana is going to say because she's so on and off with James Charles. You guys know we have documented that for years about Tana, but it does seem like this whole situation with James Charles and Kayla isn't going anywhere and it's here to stay.
Situation is as severe as that. My last priority is going to be to jump on TikTok and performatively make a video distancing myself, which seems to be what people wanted me to do. Instead, I have been spending the past week speaking to the victims, gathering as much information as I can to ensure that I have a full picture of what happened so I can speak as accurately as possible. So in this video, I'm going to try and address everything from the narratives that have been circulating online, as well as the many lies that James Charles said in his response video, and then in the end, everything to do with the allegations made against Zach Sellers. So I want to start by addressing the narrative that is honestly the most hurtful to me, which is that I did this interview for attention or financial gain or to monetize the horrific trauma experienced by Kayla. So I just want to be clear about the facts. I invested my own money from my own pocket in producing this interview, knowing full well it would be a financial loss to me, purely because I felt it was a story, and still very much feel it is a story, that the world deserved to know.
And if you followed this Be Better guy at all, you would know that he comes from a very affluent family. They have money. I really do think that the last thing that he wanted to do was capitalize. The situation with Zach made people turn on Be Better because they feel like he was too quick to give a platform. And the reality is still, even though Zach can be a horrible person, and he is if he did the things that's being accused of him, he could still be right about James Charles. There could still be a shred of truth to some of the things that he said. It doesn't mean that everything he said is true, but there might be little fragments there. You never know. I just wanted to point that out.
In which one of the biggest influencers on the planet is a now self-admitted abuse enabler. Number 2, the small amount of money that was made from the interview, I believe it was about $1,500, was already donated to a domestic violence charity called No More. I learned about them during the Blake Lively case, and it was donated in Kayla's name, and that was my plan from the very beginning. In addition to that, the only reason this interview existed in the first place is because it was a story that Kayla wanted the world to know. And had it not been for her direct involvement, for her blessing and her encouragement, I never would have done the interview in the first place. And if at any point in time she changed her mind, I would have pulled the plug on the entire thing. And lastly, I just want to remind people that the first words out of my mouth in that interview was reminding the audience to pause and please watch Kayla's videos first and make sure that I was redirecting all of the attention back toward her and ensuring that the audience understood that everything we were about to speak to obviously came in second to her story.
I actually watched that interview and he did exactly that at the beginning of it. He's not lying or bullshitting here, so I don't understand why people get upset or mad with him because I feel like everything I've seen him cover, even outside of this, has always been fair and unbiased. And to be honest, most of the people probably being loud about this whole situation with Be Better and Zach were probably stands of James Charles in the first place anyway.
I want to underscore the social significance of this story and why I ultimately reject the narrative that this is just TikTok drama. So, in every case of abuse, there is the person that commits the abuse, and there's someone who enables it. Sometimes it's a friend who turns a blind eye. Sometimes it's a coworker who notices a bruise and doesn't say anything. And sometimes it's the biggest influencer on the planet named James Charles Dickinson, who by his own omission was explicitly told from his friend that she, quote, experienced the worst things a human being has ever experienced and that she was abused. And the word abuse was in fact used. His response to that, by his own admission, was to say, "Can I have him now?"
Insane work. Even from James Charles. Literally just shared with him in this same thread, in the same thread in time, that he did the most unimaginable things to her. And that's what he said. Yeah.
And then proceed to develop a friendship with him and fly him to his home for 4 nights after, by multiple witness accounts, he was flirting with him, sexually attracted to him, pursuing him even when Kayla and Evan were still together. And now, after his reputation is what it is, being a liar and a self-admitted child predator, was arrogant enough to make a video screaming at the camera like a petulant child having a temper tantrum, as if it was completely absurd that people believed that there was sexual undertones of their friendship. So one of the many lies said by James Charles in his response video was his reasoning as to why he didn't speak sooner, which was he was so worried that a TikTok video he made could negatively impact the outcome for Kayla.
I love the explanation that he's about to give because this perfectly displays that James Charles is all smoke and mirrors. He says something that sounds big and meaningful and important when it's just really a puff of smoke to distract you from what's really going on.
Now, the reason why this is untrue is because there was no trial between Kayla Malik and Evan Johnson. There was a sentencing hearing between the Crown and Evan Johnson in which charges were pressed and in which he pled guilty to. So there was no jury, there was no ongoing trial, and the idea that anything James Charles said in a TikTok video was going to be used is completely untrue and was a clever way for him to deflect the real reason as to why he didn't address all of this, which is that he was caught red-handed. Now, there was a very obvious logical contradiction made in James's response video, which was the way he attempted to absolve himself was by minimizing the friendship he had with Kayla by saying, I didn't really know her that well. But then the follow-up question.
I would like to say that I pointed that out in the video that I made about James Charles and Kayla Malik. I said that James Charles was being intentionally manipulative with the wording that he was using and the way that he was addressing things in that apology addressing things video. I clocked his shit real good with that one.
To that would be, if you didn't know Kayla that well, then how well could you have possibly known Evan Johnson, someone who you only knew through Kayla? And the implication is you actually didn't know him at all. He was a stranger to you. Yet you still believed him over her, gave him advice, flew him to your home, lied to Kayla when she asked you if he's at your house.
The gag is that James Charles admitted that. He admitted that he lied to her face and he made people feel as if it was not a big deal and downplayed that. But that's exactly what he did in No More Lies. This is what James Charles does. This is what he has always done. And I don't think he's ever going to change unless somebody actually really clocks him. And I feel like Kayla really had the potential to do that. In some ways, she might still be able to, because I feel like James Charles is going to get cocky, and I'm calling it now. I feel like he's going to pop back off at her because he's going to have enough, and he's going to feel like really bold in a moment and be like, you know what? I'm just going to throw shade back at her and see what happens. What's the worst that could happen? I already have 40 million subscribers. People didn't give a shit that this happened in the first place, so I'll just get away with it. Let's see what happens. Let's see where this road takes us. And then it's going to be some back and forth between him and Kayla. I have that feeling. I really think he will do that because James Charles doesn't give a shit. He literally flew out somebody that he did not know that abused somebody that he was acquaintances with. There's not really any kind of way that he can dress that up. That is what happened.
One of the worst aspects, in my opinion, was you actually weaponized the information that Kayla confided in you with when she said, I experienced horrific things and I'm putting together a 30-part Who the F Did I Marry series on the abuse I suffered. Screenshotted that and sent it to Evan as a way to exploit the vulnerability and anxiety he felt over Kayla coming forward with the horrific abuse that she suffered, and then offering yourself as a shoulder to cry on because we all know you want to get in his pants.
What I want to know is how James Charles feels comfortable saying that he's an advocate for victims of abuse, but then he does shit like this. Like, how do you explain that? Like, you cannot explain that away. He was literally so desperate that he took somebody else's scraps that he knew were no good and could potentially be dangerous, all because he thought he was hot. Because let's not forget, Kayla said that he always made it a point that every conversation was about Evan. That is how fucking thirsty James Charles is, okay? He's not even just desperate anymore. He's thirsty, he's parched.
James also lied in his video when he announced to 50 million people that he was actively pursuing legal action, yet never filed anything. I found this a little bizarre because it's been weeks now, and he could have easily already filed a bare bones legal complaint that could have been amended or withdrawn later, but he didn't. And I believe the reason he didn't is that he never actually intended to, and instead was using it as a scare tactic so people stop speaking out against him.
And that right there is why he always gets away with everything. He has never in the history of any of these scandals said that he would sue somebody, and this is the magic card that he decided that he was going to pull out this time. Remember, with No More Lies, it was the Uno reverse card. This time it's, oh, I'm going to sue you. I could swear, and I don't remember who it was, I thought it was Avery Wood. Somebody did a podcast or an interview with James Charles, and they addressed him never getting a lawyer involved with all these allegations and stuff, and he said, I just wouldn't do that because I don't care what people have to say. And I have looked, I have scoured the internet for that clip, and I cannot find it. But boy, oh boy, I would absolutely love to have it, because that is the reason that James Charles is getting away with this time. That and the fact that people just don't care about other people anymore.
And I think James knows what a lawsuit entails. And if we look at what he is truly denying, and out of the entirety of all the allegations, the single solitary minute detail that he denies is that him and Evan Johnson ever ended up having sex. So if that is what the defamation suit is circulating around, The first thing that is going to be looked into during the discovery process is whether or not there were any sexual undertones between their interactions. And I think that is number one, the very reason why he will not file a lawsuit, because he definitely has something to hide. If he didn't, he wouldn't be scared of the discovery process and having all of his messages entered into the public record through subpoenas. And number two, it's also the reason why in his response video, he didn't include any messages between him and Evan Johnson, which would have easily proven his innocence.
Isn't it funny how that works out? James Charles can always show all the DMs of everybody except the people that we want to see them from. Remember, we never got anything from the Dolan twins when all that shit happened. All we got was some speculation that they might speak out, and they never did. And it feels like James Charles is applying that same tactic to this whole situation here. That's just my opinion.
Now, the allegations regarding Zach Sellers are completely disgusting, and I immediately confronted him the second that I saw Devin's video, to which he did not respond, and I've not heard from him since, which isn't really screaming innocent. I would be dishonest if I sat here and said that these allegations don't add a layer of complexity to this entire ordeal. I also can't tell you that I'm surprised that the individual who was always the best friend of Evan Johnson, someone who almost unalived Kayla, ended up having a shady past. What I can say I'm completely shocked by and have lost sleep over is the sheer stupidity that went into the decision to jump at the chance to sit down for an interview with me, in which the subject matter revolved around James Charles, someone who is historically and infamously condemned for messaging minors, in which Zach very well knew he had possibly engaged in the same behavior.
It's like these people don't know how to keep their own side of the street clean, but they want to go and like poke at other people and call them out. Because there's another situation that's very similar to this one that's going on. Following, I'm not going to report on, and there's somebody out there getting called out that's calling out other people for doing the same exact thing that they're allegedly doing. And I was watching all those videos and I was like, oh my God. Like, how are you going to call out James Charles for allegedly flying somebody out and allegedly paying them for things when you might be doing them same things? I don't know, girl. Over there on TikTok, it's getting really messy.
Past. I don't understand the psychology that went into that. I don't understand that he likely, presumably thought that this wouldn't come out. It is a complete mystery to me. If you are someone who is a victim of Zach Sellers, please email me your story and your information and your evidence, as I am personally compiling a document of all the allegations and bringing it to law enforcement, which is where these allegations belong. There was absolutely no way for me to have known that these allegations existed beforehand, and the purpose of the interview was not to platform him, but to extract information, which is exactly what I did. And I'm glad to say that his TikTok account has now been banned. And for those of you saying I am a grifter, despite the fact that I've never made $1 from my content, and that this type of content does not benefit my business in any way, I just want to say that I do this as a hobby. I enjoy investigating things, which is why I'm going to continue doing that, and I do not see it as my job to infantilize my audience. I trust their intelligence, and I trust their ability to view information and to extract their own logical conclusions from it.
Like I said in the beginning of this video, I don't get the Be Better slander. I think that he did a fantastic job, even though I don't think he should have interviewed Zach. I do think he did an incredible job handling this. And I think it's admirable that he sat here and made a whole video dedicated to addressing what was going on and the concerns that people had with him posting this content. That says a lot about his character. And this whole situation with James Charles sure says a lot about his. But of course, I want to know what you guys think about this situation. Do you think that James Charles is actually going to sue anybody? I don't, especially not Zach Sellers. He don't have anything. And also, let me know if you think he'll sue Be Better. I don't think he will, but some people seem to think that that's going to be something that's going to come to fruition. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it. And if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. And just go ahead and leave me the clown emoji, because James Charles and Zach Sellers are both clowns. And with that said, I hope you guys all have an amazing day, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, guys.